Long before Bitcoin, before oil, before gold, there were spices, and their value changed the world. They moved armies, drew maps, built cities, and launched 1,000 ships. Salt rooted civilizations. Pepper sparked expansion. This is their story. To be worth one's salt is to be worth one's pay. Our word salary derives from the Latin salarium, what Roman soldiers were given to purchase salt. Other idioms still echo this value. Take with a grain of salt, salt of the earth, below the salt. Today, salt and pepper sit side by side on every table, indistinguishable except by a tiny label or marking on their container. But by placing them together, we pair two distinct epochs of world history. Because salt and pepper once shaped civilizations, and their modern abundance is a monument to human will. From cosmic dust to ancient seas, salt shaped the earth long before humanity walked its shores. Could life itself have existed without salt? Salt's use dates back to dim prehistory, a mineral of the earth, a primordial crystal. It was sacred. Romans offered it to the gods. The word salus, for well-being, shares its root with salt.
Exactly.
That's how essential salt was to the Roman Empire. So essential, they built an entire highway for it, the Via Salaria. Soldiers marched to collect salt from the Adriatic coast. This wasn't just a road. It was Rome's lifeline. They used it to heal wounds, flavor food, and preserve meats. But the Egyptians were likely first to master this magic. Salt pulls moisture from flesh, and from fish and fruit and bodies. They packed mummies in it. In fact, when they shipped those mummies down the Nile, they were taxed as a salted meat. Salt moved civilizations. In China, wars were waged over salt lakes. Long before oil rigs pierced the earth, Chinese engineers were drilling hundreds of feet deep, not for fuel, but for flavor. In Greece, salt and bread were symbols of hospitality. To the Greeks, salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was sacred, a gift from Poseidon. Salt bridged the sea and the divine. In ancient Hebrew tradition, salt was sacred as well, a sign of loyalty and a covenant with God. And of course, in the book of Genesis, we find one of salt's most haunting appearances, Lot's wife, fleeing the destruction of Sodom, disobeyed the divine command to never look back. She turned and was transformed into a pillar of salt. A punishment, a symbol, a warning carved into earth itself. In temples across Asia, salt isn't just a seasoning, it's sacred. In Buddhist belief, it protects, wards off evil, purifies. A small bowl by the altar, a ritual line at the threshold. In Japan, salt is tossed into the sumo ring to cleanse the ground, an echo of Shinto rituals, where salt welcomes the divine. Salt becomes the barrier between worlds, a mineral, a prayer. In southern Africa, among the Zulu people, salt is more than a mineral. It's a blessing, sprinkled in healing rituals, stirred up into medicine. It purifies, protects, connects the living to the ancestors, a humble crystal with divine purpose. In India, it's a symbol of purity and resistance. In Slavic weddings, newlywed couples are greeted with bread and salt. Salt blesses the threshold, passed from hand to hand, from heart to heart. Not all salts are the same. We eat sodium chloride, rock salt, or sea salt, but other salts exist. potassium chloride for fertilizer, magnesium chloride to make tofu. In the US, the biggest use for salt isn't food, it's for de-icing roads. Meanwhile, over 50% of pharmaceuticals exist as salts. Salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was a strategy. It preserved armies, it funded wars. In medieval Italy, Venice literally went to war with Genoa over spices. Salt keeps the livestock alive and the empire fed. Salt financed revolutions. In America, the South blockaded the British salt. In France, unfair salt taxes fueled rebellion. In India, Gandhi's Salt March became a symbol of non-violent resistance. The very name Salzburg, Austria, means salt fortress. Ever notice how many English towns end in wich? Norwich, Greenwich, Sandwich. There's no coincidence. In Old English, which often marked a place of trade, and more often than not, a place where salt was king. Empires were built on it. Now we barely think about it. The leaders once obsessed with French sea salt sound quaint today, but in every age, we convince ourselves that only our valuables are real. The search for love and the search for wealth are the two best stories. But while a love story is timeless, a quest for wealth, given enough time, will always seem like the vain pursuit of a mirage. Salt once wrapped the dead in sacred rites, embalming pharaohs, preserving flesh for an eternity. It preserved the living too, curing meats, packing fish, giving armies and empires their shelf life. And then came the can, tin, factories, industrial scale. Convenience replaced ritual. And when the refrigerator arrived, salt, the ancient guardian of food, became just another shaker on the table. But some of us remember that before it was ordinary, salt was everything.
Alrighty, let's get this party started. What is black pepper? Black pepper is a berry. Comes in different flavors too. Green, white, red, all from the same fruit. Out of all the spices, pepper is by far the most popular. It's so common that we take it for granted. And the story of how pepper shaped the world is obscured by the sheer amount of salt and pepper shakers that we find in restaurants. Pepper is magically everywhere. Do we ever wonder where it originated from? Historically, pepper came from India into Europe. Europeans long considered India paradise itself, a land of spice and everything nice. But the story of the spice trade is anything but nice. The story of pepper is rife with war, greed, and colonialism. So here's my food for thought. How did pepper get from what Europeans considered paradise to almost every kitchen and restaurant today? Let's find out. The pepper plant is indigenous to the luscious green rainforest of India. Although native in other parts of the world, it's on these shores, the Malabar coast, that countless adventurers have come searching for tasty trade goods over the millennia. Sumerian records dating back to 3000 BC refer to Kerala as the Garden of Spices. Ancient Babylonians, Assyrians, and Egyptians were all attracted to these gardens over the years. And by 600 BC, nomadic Arabs gained control of the spice trade, and Arabia flourished. By the time Alexander the Great died, the legendary gardens also attracted Greeks, who sailed all their way from the strategic foothold in Egypt. Rome, annexing Egypt, eventually took control of the spice trade. As time went on, Rome was attacked by barbarians. And guess what they wanted? Alaric, king of the Visigoths, laid siege to that city. He demanded 5,000 pounds of gold, 4,000 pounds of silver, and 3,000 pounds of pepper. or he'd sack the city. And when they produced his tribute, he sacked that city anyway. With the eventual fall of Rome, the Dark Ages slowly crept over Europe like a shadow. The knowledge of the Malabar coast and gardens of spices slipped out of time and mind, and in order to protect their profits, Arab traders began telling stories about the dangerous nature of harvesting pepper. Myths of dragon-like serpents guarding the pepper trees circulated throughout Europe.
Be careful.
It was said that only by burning down the trees could you extract peppercorns, which also doubled as a convenient origin story explaining the color of black pepper. Out of the dust of the fallen Roman Empire, Venice arose as a great naval power and soon controlled the Adriatic Sea. The Venetians were quick to dominate the distribution of pepper from Alexandria. With naval superiority, Venice positioned themselves as modern-day dropshippers, purchased product from the Muslim-controlled Alexandria and resold it on the European markets. The price of pepper skyrocketed, and soon, only the most wealthy were able to afford it. Pepper became a status symbol, a way for the rich to flaunt their wealth and affluence. It also doubled as a more stable form of currency than actual money. Could you imagine if people had social media back in this day? They'd be showing off their sacks of pepper and spices on silver platters, and in fancy dining rooms, flashing chalices of wine soaked in fruits and spices, and snapping pics of their weird and unusual food. Let's take a look at a really strange recipe from the medieval ages. A cookbook from the 15th century gives the following directions for the preparation of meat. Cook a large piece of pork, not too lean, and very tender. Chop it as fine as you wish, add clove and mace, and continue chopping, also chopping in dried currants and shape into little round balls approximately 2 inches across, and set aside in a bowl. Next, prepare a good almond milk. Mix in some rice and boil well, taking care it stays very liquid. Sprinkle generously with sugar and mace and serve. The medieval ruling classes had a peculiar penchant for strongly seasoned dishes. The higher the rank of the household, the greater use of spices because of the prices. Today, we would see these dishes and think it was Indian Arabic cuisine rather than any Western one. Prepared foods were virtually buried under spices. Food was little more than a vehicle for condiments, which were used in combinations we nowadays would consider quite bizarre. When Constantinople fell to the Ottomans in 1453, Venice's powers waned. Portugal and Spain promptly assumed naval superiority. Spain sent Christopher Columbus to find India, but by way of the Atlantic, and I think we all know he found the Americas. In the midst of that discovery, the Dutch gained control from the Spanish, who went off to form its own spice company. In the name of Portugal, though, Vasco da Gama set sail around the continent of Africa, if you could imagine, searching for India, of course, in its fabled Garden of Spices. And in 1498, they landed on the shores of the Malabar coast, with his men shouting, "We love you, God! We do it for Jesus Christ!" Lisbon was soon to become one of the wealthiest cities in Europe. Over the years, the Dutch fought the Portuguese for dominance of the spice trade, and after a 200-year monopoly, Britain came in, defeated the Dutch, and colonized India. Pretty much game over for anyone trying to get control of that spice trade. Although the food game was still a little weird. With the rise of French cuisine in the 17th century, an end was put to the overspicing of dishes, as we saw in the medieval ages. With well-calibrated recipes and an emphasis on less is more, the price of pepper dropped dramatically with the decrease in demand. Even so, today's world still consumes as much black pepper as all the other spices combined. Pepper has been one of the most sought-after commodities for thousands of years, the undisputed king of spices. So, Do we wonder about this when we have a steak or a Caesar salad in front of us? The next time you're at a restaurant and the server is bringing over a pepper mill, think of all the struggle and strife Pepper has had to go through to be right in front of you.
Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through salt and pepper, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep exploring with me. One ingredient at a time.
Grazie. You see that color? You see how the pepper works, Carlo, huh?